Allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The prayer this morning will be offered by the General Lady representing Prince George's and Anne Arundel counties.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Let us bow our heads, please. God, allow us to live one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, trusting that you will make all things right if we surrender to your will. Amen.
Amen. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 125 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read a journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 1st, 2024.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the journal.
So ordered, petitions, memorials, and other papers. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters. Report number 6. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 238, Public Health Clean Indoor Air Act revisions, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. A favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 567, Maryland Online Data Privacy Act of 2024, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much to be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 makes various technical changes definitions of the bill, limits the bill to those who conduct business or provide products in the state, provides data level exemption for those covered under the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, exempts instrumentalities of the state, adds exemptions for certain medical data, authorizes an employer who requires confidential clause for employment to share information with an employee or contractor, makes changes to the prohibitions using geofencing, changes the scope of the rights of the consumer, expands the age range in references to minors, and applies to bill processors, alters the requirements for the controller, alters relationship between controller and processor, makes data assessment prospective, delays the implementation date, and adds a severability provision. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the floor leader, the committee chair, or otherwise, this is a very complicated bill. It's a very significant bill, obviously, and you just indicated there's been a lot of amendments through the committee process. I'm not sure I even know what a controller or a processor is sitting here today. Would you be amenable to special ordering the bill until the appropriate time tomorrow to give me an opportunity to take more of a look at it and discuss that with you?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Move to special order until the appropriate time tomorrow, Madam
Question
Speaker.
for the House is a special order HB 567 until the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The bill will be special ordered for tomorrow. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 603, Consumer Protection Online Products and Services, Data of Children, Maryland Kids Code, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 changes how the bill is interpreted and construed, clarifies various definitions, alters the exemption provision, changes the data protection impact assessment requirement, clarifies how personal data of a child can be used, clarifies language related to parental monitoring, clarifies that monitoring and censorship of third-party content is not required, and adds specificities that these laws should be harmonized with laws relating to consumer personal data protections. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 669, Workers' Compensation Benefits Hearing Loss. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 alters the frequencies in which industrial noise must be for an employer to be required to provide workers' compensation to a covered employee for hearing loss, removes the requirement that tinnitus be considered part of the calculation of an employer's hearing loss, and also remove the provisions that authorize a compensable claim for hearing loss attributable to tinnitus. Please move the amendments. Thank you.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 680, Environment, Nuclear Power Plants, Emergency Preparedness, Radiation and Emergency Preparedness and Protection Act. Favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 859, Real Estate Brokers, Licensing, License Renewals, and Continuing Education. Favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 864, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Plans. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendment number 1 is move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires the PSC to set emissions reduction targets based on former energy efficiency standards in a certain manner. Clarifies the scope of the bill with respect to electric companies and larger regulated gas companies. Alters the scheduling so that these companies will prepare plans for a full 3-year greenhouse gas reduction plan cycle starting in 2027 and makes conforming changes. Amendment number 3 provides corresponding changes to empower activities conducted by DHCD, phases in the same 3-year plan cycles for DHCD, and strikes the references to a new moderate income programs. Amendment number 4 applies 3-year plan cycle framework for PSC implementing orders and related requirements. Amendment number 5 requires DHCD to include certain items in its Empower plans and activities. Amendment number 6 requires the PSC to establish a working group to study Empower program benefits for moderate income households and coordination of utility-based and DHCD activities for this sector, and makes conforming changes. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 13. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 165, Local Government Annual Audit Reporting Requirements, Alterations. Favorable with amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 165.
So much.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, this bill imposes a financial penalty through the reduction of 20% of specified state aid payments for the failure of a local government to submit required audited financial reports within 3 years after the deadline. There are two amendments. The first requires the report to be 3 years late instead of 1 year before the state aid will be withheld. It also would only allow the withholding of highway user revenue, not police or disparity grants. The amendment also clarifies the timing of having the withheld funds reinstated if the local government comes into compliance. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 668, Anne Arundel County Sheriff's Salary, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 761, Montgomery County School Bus Monitoring Cameras, distribution of fines, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, HB 761 requires the fines collected by Montgomery County as a result of violations enforced by school monitoring cameras on state highway to be remitted to the comptroller for distribution only to assist covering the cost of roadway and pedestrian safety improvements at locations where students board or exit a school bus or travel to and from at the destination where they board or exit a school bus. The amendment expands the location where roadway and pedestrian safety improvements may be made. Move the amendment.
Question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 839, Carroll County Contracts and Purchasing, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
This is a local bill that raises the contract value of the threshold from $25,000 to $50,000, above which the county commissioners of Carroll County need to give advance public notice and use competitive bidding. Amendment number 1 makes technical changes in the purpose paragraph. Amendment number 2 replaces Chief of the Bureau of Purchasing with Procurement Officer based on the more common usage and understanding of this term. Move the amendments.
Question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 906, Garrett County Sheriff's Salary Alteration, favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1213, Baltimore County Sheriff's Salary, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
This local bill establishes salary for the Baltimore County Sheriff in various ways. The only amendment changes the sponsor to be the Baltimore County delegation. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1338, Howard County Agricultural Preservation Advisory Board, term length alteration, favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 12. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 131, Housing Development Permit Applications, Local Reporting Requirements, favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
As amended, the bill requires each local jurisdiction with at least 150 residents to report specified information related to building or developing permits applications to the Department of Housing and Community Development and the Maryland Department of Planning by July 1st of each year. A local jurisdiction must make the report publicly available on its website. The committee amendments, amendment number 1 makes technical changes and adds co-sponsors. Amendment number 2 requires each jurisdiction to report specified information related to the building or development permit applications in the jurisdiction has at least 150,000 residents instead of 250. It also aligns the reporting requirements with the fiscal year, updates reporting information to use for corrected nomenclature, and also allows jurisdictions to submit any other information they consider relevant and submit the report with other reports that the jurisdiction may be required. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 233, Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays Critical Area Protection Program, Climate Equity and Administrative Provisions, favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Be so much considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As amended, HB 233, a departmental bill, modifies the Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays Critical Areas Protection Programs to 1, incorporate climate resilience, environmental justice, and equity measures. 2, extend and alter the requirement that critical area maps be updated on a regular interval. 3, adds minimum requirements for local programs. And 4, incorporates administrative efficiencies. Move the amendment.
Question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 282, Speed Monitoring Systems, Agency Statements, and Certificates of Violations, favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you. As amended, HB 282 authorizes for a municipality that does not maintain a police force, a technician employed by an agency to sign a statement in a citation alleging a speed monitoring system violation and swear or affirm that a speed monitoring violation occurred. Committee amendments limit the application of the bill to municipalities that do not maintain a police force. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying, I see you there, but it's a process we go through. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just have a quick question for the floor leader.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much for answering my questions. I really appreciate it. So what this bill is doing is seeking to allow technicians to be able to sign off whether or not these speed camera citations can be issued. What's current law? Who's able to do this now?
So right now, only sworn law enforcement may sign off on these citations. And the point of this bill is that there are municipalities that do not have police forces that would like to use these cameras. And if they want to do it right now, they have to contract with law enforcement. And that's an added hurdle and an added expense. So we're trying to allow these smaller municipalities who don't have police forces to be able to use these systems.
I totally appreciate the intent. So right now under current law, what is the purpose of having a sworn law enforcement certify these citations?
So that was instituted when speed cameras were first authorized by this body, long before I was here, and I think long before you were here. And the point at that point was to help the public feel more comfortable, because these systems were new, and they wanted to feel more comfortable that a sworn law enforcement officer was reviewing these things. That was many, many years ago.
No, and I appreciate that. So these technicians, do they have to swear any type of oath to the public trust or to the state or any of that?
So as I read, they have to sign a statement that the speed monitoring system violation occurred, and then swear or affirm that a violation occurred.
But only swearing that they've seen it, they're not swearing an oath per se to the state.
Public?
To the public, just on the document.
Correct.
All right, would you be willing to hold this for an amendment for the appropriate time tomorrow?
To the appropriate time tomorrow, yes.
Thank
Madam
you.
Speaker, we'll accept the special order.
Question before the House is Special Order HB 282 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The bill has been special ordered. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 511, Vehicle Laws, Bicycles, Operation at Intersections, favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 534, Community Development Administration Live Near Your School Program, Funding and Extension. Favorable amendments. Amendment 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, this bill extends the termination date of Chapter 247 of 2021, which established the Live Near Your School Program and a related home buyer assistance program from September 30th, 2024 to September 30th, 2030. This bill takes effect July 1st, 2024. The amendments, Amendment number 1 makes technical corrections and adds co-sponsors. Amendment number 2 strikes the mandatory appropriation in the bill for Live Near Your School Program. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 599, Maryland Community Investment Corporation Establishment Housing and Community Development Financing Act of 2024. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 clarifies that the corporation makes investments and financial assistance available in low-income communities and requires the advisory committee's membership to be geographically representative of the state. And finally, the amendments require the advisory committee to prioritize projects owned or operated by entities whose principal place of business is in Maryland. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 737, Vehicle Law, Slow-Moving Vehicles, Right-Hand Lane. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, HB 737 requires a driver traveling slower than the general speed of traffic on any roadway to drive the right-hand lane or lanes if the driver determines it is practical to do so. It also, in subcommittee, it also alters the standards under which the State Highway Administration is required to inform drivers of the requirement. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 840, Vehicle Laws, Annual Vehicle Shows, Motor and Trailer Homes. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Thank you, Madam
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 840 increases the number of annual vehicle shows not limited to motorhomes and trailers in which a new motorhome or trailer dealer and its salespersons may participate from 2 shows to 3. Move the amendments, please.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The
Thank you.
ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 979, Agriculture, Invasive Plant Species, Regulation, Biodiversity, and Agricultural Protection Act. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Be so much considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As amended, the bill alters the regulatory approach for controlling an invasive plant species in the state. The bill repeals the existing 2-tiered regulatory approach and instead establishes a regulatory approach that generally involves 1, assessments of non-invasive plant species by expert assessors to determine the invasiveness rank of each such species, 2, review of such assessments, and 3, the determination of by the Secretary of Agriculture whether such species should be classified as prohibited invasive plants and included on a consolidated list of Maryland invasive plant species or watch list. Say that 5 times. Amendment number 1 makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 alters definition, alters the responsibilities of the Invasive Plants Advisory Committee, clarifies the process for classifying certain plants as prohibited invasive plants, and authorizes the State Highway Administration to conduct certain activities for the purpose of controlling or disposing of a prohibited invasive plant along state highways without prior approval from the Secretary of Agriculture. Please move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to request that we special order this bill to the appropriate time tomorrow for a friendly amendment.
Vice Chair?
Yes, sir. Tomorrow, please send me the amendment.
Thank you.
Question for the House is to special order HB 979 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The bill has been special ordered. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1227, Condominiums, Mandatory Insurance Coverage, Detached Units. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
I had to let him finish, and then I want to call on you. Okay. Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, the bill generally alters statutory provisions that govern insurance coverage for condominiums. As amended, the bill also requires the Council of Unit Owners to give an annual notice to owners of residential detached units and inform them of an obligation to obtain property insurance. Amendment number 1 makes technical corrections, and amendment number 2 requires the above stated notice. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations. Report number 8. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 76, Health Occupations, Pharmacist, Administration of Vaccines. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 adds sponsors. Amendment number 2 authorizes pharmacists that meet specified requirements to order and administer influenza vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines, or vaccines used in response to a public health emergency to children who are at least 3 years old, and vaccines that are recommended by the Centers for Disease Control or approved by the Food and Drug Administration to children who are at least 7 years old. Move the amendments.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1012, State Officers and Employees, Required Surety Bonds, Insurance Policies Authorized. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1078, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Remote Ultrasound Procedures and Remote Fetal Non-Stress Tests. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1105, Advanced Practice Registered Nurses, Certification Requirements and Exceptions. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1110, Maryland Interstate Emergency Management Assistance Compact, City of Frederick. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary. Report number 5. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 274, Intercepted Communications Penalty. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 290, Crimes, Interception of Wire, Oral, or Electronic Communications, Exception for Imminent Danger. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 315, Regulated Firearms, Department of State Police, Reporting Requirements. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1. My apologies. My apologies, Madam Speaker. My pages were stuck together here. Amendment number 1 strikes the Department of Police and substitutes Maryland Judiciary. Amendment number 2 strikes Department of Police and also substitutes Maryland Judiciary. Please move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now, the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 359, petition for guardianship of the property of alleged disabled person, stay of civil actions and proceedings. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Floor leader, vice chair, anybody? Chairman. Okay.
Madam Speaker, could I ask to special order this bill to the end of the calendar, please?
Question for the House is to special order HB 359 to later in the calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The bill has been special ordered to the end of the calendar. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 406, marriage, confidential communication, criminal charge. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 clarifies that for purposes of the bill, spouse includes a former spouse. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 435, child support, incarcerated obligors. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 585, Protecting Election Officials Act of 2024. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
The amendment is just simply adds counsel to the State Board of Elections and counsel to the local Board of Elections to the definition of election official. Please move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, who's also the sponsor of the bill. Yeah. Not exactly. Can I just ask a technical question?
Sure.
Just for, I guess, intent purposes and clarifying. So I did look through the bill, look through the fiscal notes, and I was just wanted to ensure that threat is defined. I know that it's defined as it pertains to other state officials, and I wrote down here section 3708 of the criminal law article. For example, if an individual threatens to kill, kidnap, harm, injure, etc., that's obviously prohibited. Is that what we're essentially adding the election officials into?
It does include that. It also includes an oral threat made by electronic communication, threats in written form as well.
But just to clarify, so it's not criticisms?
No, it has to be beyond criticism.
Okay. And
Yes.
so, and just one more time, so when we talk about the threat, it's in line with threaten to harm someone, kidnap, kill.
Correct.
Not criticize.
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 592, Prince George's County Judgeships, Circuit Courts. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 359, petition for guardianship of the property of alleged disabled persons, stay of civil actions and proceedings. Favorable amendments. Amendment 1.
Maker of the special order.
All my questions have been answered.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the term requiring and substitutes authorizing a petitioner to request an automatic stay of civil actions and proceedings on the filing of a petition for guardianship of the property of an alleged disabled person, and adds language to make the provisions of the act apply only prospectively. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 6. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 648, Family Law, Child Support, Actual Income. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the definition of actual income in the bill to include certain amounts of non-taxable earned income from an employer that would have been withheld if the income were taxable. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 848, Family Law, Child Custody Determinations. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 854, Sex Offenders, Required Registration, Locations. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Move so much. I'm sorry.
Recognizing the Vice Chair. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 applies the bill only to counties with more than 300,000 residents and requires law enforcement agencies in each of those large counties to designate at least 2 locations in the county where a registrant may register. Please move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 960, City of Frederick, Assignment of Offenders to Road Work, Repeal. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1034, Baltimore City Sheriff, Staffing. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 changes the bill sponsored to the Baltimore City Delegation by request to the Baltimore City Sheriff and makes a technical change. Amendment number 2 limits the number of social workers that may be appointed to 2 and subjects the sheriff's authority to appoint any additional sworn or civilian personnel to existing provisions related to collective bargaining and the provision of funding in the ordinance of estimates or any other source. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1258, Estates and Trusts, Estate Administration, Publication of Notice. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1316, real property, holding over, expedited hearing and service of summons for active duty service member. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 expedites the trial process of no later than 45 days instead of 30 days for active duty service members or their spouse in tenant holding over eviction actions, and authorizes a process server to serve the notice if the sheriff or constable fails to do so within 10 days of issuance. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1406, vehicle laws, drunk and drugged driving points assessments. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 29. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 200, community schools, alterations. Favorable report is amended and adopted.
Recognize the gentleman from Carver, the maker of the.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do have just a couple of questions, if I may, before I offer the amendment, because I do have an amendment for the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam
Floor
Speaker.
leader, go ahead.
Good morning.
Hello, good friend.
Good morning. And I did share the amendment with the floor leader in advance as soon as I got it, so hopefully seems pretty straightforward.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the community schools, I was doing some research on them, and they are interesting. I know they're a relatively new concept, and they're expanding across the state. And it looks like the concentration of poverty grants weren't completely spent, and they were obviously designated in large part to community schools, among other things. Is there, and it seems like House Bill 200 is trying to provide additional guidance for how to do that. Is there a reason just that you were given in committee as to why the money wasn't spent that was provided to those community schools?
Yes, so thank you for the question, and also I want to thank you again for getting that amendment in advance. So to your point, what this bill sets out to do in light of the fact that all the funds weren't expended is to give much more support at the state level, because MSDE, we want there to be a director of community schools that is providing support. As you can imagine, people are coming to the community schools coordinator role with various gifts. Some people already have a lot of partnership potential within their, personal Rolodex. And then some are emerging professionals. So we saw fit through this to give much more state level support, but then also creating a unified needs assessment that would be the same across every community school across the state to help us identify what are the needs in that particular school. Every school doesn't have the same needs, even though they have the same high level of poverty, right? And so it's important to have that school family speak into what is truly needed, and I think we'll have more efficient spending of the funds because we'll have a more unified report out of what is needed.
Got it. And then it appears that from the bill and community schools that part of the goal is to provide in communities that are, for lack of a better term, very disadvantaged and poor, more wraparound services, because obviously there are many other potential issues that come with those communities where the children need additional services for whatever reason. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. So I'm going to offer the amendment. There's an amendment at the desk, Madam Speaker.
I don't have it, so.
It's there.
Go.
I promise. No, I understand. I was just waiting for the approval to speak for that. So it's amendment number HB 200-623-528-1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment, Madam Speaker.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So the amendment at the desk, and this amendment, is very straightforward. It says that we have a star rating system in Maryland, and that star rating system rates the schools in the state from 1 to 5 stars. A 5-star school is an amazing school, and a 1-star school is a failed school. Statewide, according to the Maryland State Department of Education, there are at least 25 1-star schools. And those 25 1-star schools are failed schools. We know they are because there's literally no learning that's occurring. We know this because of testing, which is how we decide whether or not people are learning. And so this amendment requires the superintendent and the administrators in the county in which the school is located to notify all the parents in the 1-star school that their children are attending a failed school and they have an opportunity to continue to attend that school, or they can go to a school of their choice, public, private, charter, etc. In addition to that, this amendment has one additional point to it, which is very important. And that is, the amendment has a military boarding option, emphasis on the word option, for children who are habitually violent and disruptive in the classroom. In that particular case, the amendment says that the superintendent or administrators may, not shall, may notify the parents of those children of an opportunity to attend a military boarding school, which the school system will pay for, because they believe, the superintendent and or the administrators believe, that is the best choice for that particular student. We talk about the school to prison pipeline, which is what happens when you're going to a failed school and you're not learning. I mean, what kind of opportunity do you have if you can't properly read or do simple math? The chances are pretty good you're going to enter a life of less opportunities and potentially a life of crime, potentially. Moreover, I would like to add this. In the book, The Other Wes Moore, the autobiography by Maryland's governor, Maryland's governor writes that when he was in middle school, his mother determined that he was hanging out with the wrong crowd and headed in the wrong direction. And so she enrolled him in Valley Forge Military Academy. And he credits that with changing and saving his life. He's now the governor of Maryland. I agree with the governor. There are certain situations, and we know this because we all talk to teachers and we all talk to parents, whereby there are children whose lives would be changed and saved as a result of having this opportunity. The concentration of poverty grants in Maryland, which help fund these things, aren't even fully spent. In fact, the money continues to roll over in the counties and Baltimore City, and the money has equaled, that is rolled over $10 million of unspent money. How many lives could we have changed and saved with that money? When I presented this in the past, Strong Schools Maryland, the folks who basically parrot for the teachers union at the state level, they said, well, they used Maryland's Constitution as the reason why this was a bad idea. I'd like to read to you the wording from Maryland's Constitution. Article 8, Section 1. The General Assembly shall by law establish throughout the state a thorough and efficient system of free public schools. I'm sorry, but you are not free if you are stuck in a failed school. The school that you are stuck in is not efficient if it is failed and you're not learning. The school that you're stuck in that has failed is not thorough. And this has been going on for far too long, since the Thornton Commission, for God's sakes, for over 20 years. It's time to offer school choice to the children that are in those one-starred failed schools, and in addition to that, a military boarding option for the children who are habitually violent and disruptive, so that we can change the course of their lives and give them the same opportunities that everybody else should have in this great state. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for offering his amendment. I must ask that the body resist this amendment. I first want to begin with our Constitution. The most important word in the passage that was cited by my colleague was public education. And so I want to remind the body that, first of all, as a matter of policy, we do not add other bills that are currently being considered by the General Assembly by amendment to other legislation. This amendment is essentially House Bill 27. But secondly, what this bill sets out to do is essentially privilege private education with public dollars, and that is not the best use of public dollars. What we're endeavoring to do with community schools is ensure that every Maryland student, regardless of zip code, has access to the tools that they need, not only individually, but as a family and community, to be successful as they matriculate through their education. So I do ask the body to resist this amendment.
Madam
Thank
Speaker.
you.
General lady from, where's she from?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I love this amendment. I think it's beautiful, and I enjoyed the words of my colleague from Southern Maryland. And I do find it a little interesting that we're claiming that we can't use public monies for a private school, because we actually already do that in Maryland. Many children in Maryland who have IEPs that can't be serviced in our public schools, in fact, go to private schools to get the services and the care that they actually need, because our state is failing to provide an adequate education to these children. In fact, we passed a bill, I think it may have been the chair's bill actually, yesterday, that allowed for us to give monies to families to sue our school systems for their utter failures for IEP policies. So, it's really kind of fallen on deaf ears, y'all. We already do it. It can be done. It saved the governor. It saved the governor's life. He knows it saved him. He put it in his flipping book. This is an option for children who are struggling terribly. It's an option they should have. It's really a civil rights issue to trap these children in these schools. That's what it really is. So, please don't come at us with the Constitution and we can't do it because it's public funds. We're already doing it. Let's do it for the kids who need it the most.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will definitely come at everyone in this room with the Constitution, because we're bound to uphold it. It's really important for us to do that. But I do want to also lift up that public schools have to take all students, no matter their conditions, no matter what they're coming to them with, whether they're cognitive or physical disabilities. Unlike private schools that, quite frankly, can refuse to teach and educate people that have certain unique and profound needs. So public schools, because they have to educate everyone, there are instances where needs are so profound and so specific that they do have to outsource to private schools that have chosen to make that something they specialize and support. So I just want to make sure we're on the amendment and focusing on the fact that this amendment is doing two things. One, it's trying to add a bill that's currently being considered to this bill, and it's secondly focusing on privileging public dollars for private schools. I again ask the body to resist this amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand in support of this amendment because it asks us and all of us to answer one basic question. Are we making measurable progress? That's all life asks. Are we making measurable progress? That's why those desks and chairs in second grade are so small. You're not supposed to stay there so long. They expect measurable progress. Progress, personal growth, fulfillment. That's what you need for success. Without personal growth, without progress, misery, depression, and helplessness start to set in. A pattern of learned helplessness can destroy a child, a community, a state. Learned helplessness is when something is so bad over and over again, you start to believe the problem is permanent. Doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity. These kids stuck in one-star schools start to recognize a pattern of failure all around them. Unfortunately, they start to believe all of this is happening because of them. And we want to get to a point where we destroy that pattern. We have to break this pattern that has become pervasive and is failing children in these schools. No problem is permanent, but we have to interrupt that pattern of learned helplessness. In order to change the trajectory of helplessness and failure, these students and their families need more opportunities and choice. We need to stop the insanity and the destructive pattern of failure, generational poverty, and helplessness. That is all this amendment seeks to do, is give these families and these students and our children a choice when they recognize a pattern of nothing but failure in some of these schools. With that, I push the amendment.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman
Madam
to
Speaker.
explain his vote.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, to explain my vote, we have these one-star schools, throughout the state. We have several in Baltimore County. Unfortunately, I have children from my district that attend one of these one-star schools. This is why we need this amendment. This is why we need things like this to occur. This is why we've been fighting in Baltimore County for an adequate public facilities ordinance for a long time, because we have many children that continue to have to go to these habitually failing schools. And to the floor leader, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, Madam, we already do send public money to private schools through boost funding and things like that in the state of Maryland. So I think that this gives another opportunity, another alternative for these children that unfortunately seem to be stuck in this cycle of poverty, the school-to-prison pipeline, those sorts of things that I think we have to address in other ways. And I certainly appreciate the idea of community schools. I think it's a great idea. I just think that we should have other alternatives as well to confront this serious problem. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from St. Mary's to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I happily vote green on this amendment. I believe everybody in this chamber wants the best schools possible, best schools in the state. But we have a very different way of trying to achieve that. We're now 5 years inside of implementing Kerwin, and I see nothing coming down the pike that's going to make a meaningful impact on improving our schools. The only thing that's coming down the pike is our struggling to pay for it. Struggling to the point where the Ways and Means Committee had a bill hearing 2 days ago on the largest tax increase in Maryland history. Now, kudos to the Ways and Means Committee for at least trying to address this head on and not kicking the can down the road. And as far as this private money, is that really such or private money or public money going to private schools, is that really such a foreign concept? We force private hospitals to take Medicaid recipients. We force landlords to take public money via Section 8 vouchers. We force private colleges to take public money via Pell Grants. We've been doing this for years, and for some reason when it comes to K through 12 and trying to rescue people from the school, sometimes it's not allowed. I don't understand this. This is an important conversation to have going forward, and if the private sector can do things better than the public sector, we absolutely should explore that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County to explain your vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to explain my vote briefly. I'm going to support this amendment because what you're really coming at us with is the theft of the educational opportunities of students, thousands of students, year after year after year after year. In Baltimore County, the proficiency rates are abysmal. Less than 40% of all students can read at a third grade reading level. I'm going to say that again. Less than 40% of all students can read at a third grade reading level. We have high school students that don't know their letters and numbers. It's horrific. The academic retention and achievement is going in the toilet, and what we need is accountability. You've talked to those students who take the boost funding just like I have, and you've heard their stories, and what they say is, I hated my school. I hated, that's the word they use. They use the word hate. I hated going to my school. And these one-star schools, they're stuck. I have these schools in my district just like you do. So I think when you vote today on this amendment, you should think of those students who've come to talk to you about being stuck and need an opportunity for the educational opportunities that every student in the state should have.
Madam Speaker.
Chairman of the committee.
I want to explain my red vote. My red vote is for facts. The fact is we're in the third year, not the fifth, for third fiscal year of the blueprint. The fact is we now have 19,000 kids in dual enrollment on the blueprint. The fact is we have a dramatic increase in pre-K from the blueprint. And the fact is that we have $360 million in concentration of poverty grants, which, oh no, I guess 10 million of it has been rolled over. What a tragedy. So my vote is for public education, and that's why I cast a red vote.
Thank you, Matt.
Gentleman from Calvert. Gentlelady from Baltimore County, since he sat down.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand to explain my green vote. We do make non-public school placements. We know that we do that for kids that need help. It happens regularly, and this is just another opportunity to do that. As a former educator, I can tell you that every year lost for kids, especially in the early years, sets them back exponentially. So let's give all of our kids a chance. You know, I look around on this floor and I know everyone here is committed to making sure our kids get a great education. And some people here send their kids to private school. Let's give other kids the same opportunity. Let's call this the Westmore Opportunity Amendment that allows kids to go to schools that will give them a bright future. I urge agreeing.
Gentlelady from Hartford.
Thank you,
to
Madam
explain
Speaker.
her vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't usually get up on the floor, but I had the opportunity to peruse the library, and to explain my green vote, I had the opportunity at the library to watch Waiting for Superman. And basically it's about Geoffrey Canada, who created the Harlem Children's Zone. And I just Googled to make sure that it was kind of up to date. Barack Obama created the Promised Neighborhoods Initiative to replicate his work with the Harlem Children's Project. Also, most of the children that go to this, that they go to the school and it stays within their community, and it's kind of like a boarding school, but they go back to their homes during the weekend. The point is, most of these kids go on to a college education and beyond to professions, and it's over 90%. And I mean, I can't give this gentleman the credit that he honestly deserves on this floor, but basically we need options. And the point is this man has been able to do this one school at a time. And I think we really need to think about this and give options to children and options to their parents. So we really need to do innovation. Public school does not fit all the children. One size does not fit all. So that is why I'm voting green on this amendment. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County,
Thank
explain
you.
his vote.
To explain my vote, I vote no on this amendment because this amendment is on a bill that was crafted carefully to help community schools be more effective in the way the funding runs for students. And to vote for this amendment would be to undermine those good efforts. Community schools pointed all students of need at one time, and it has value, and we dare not undermine it at this stage. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 30. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 477, landlord and tenant residential leases and holdover tenancies, local just cause termination provisions. Favorable report is amended and adopted.
Maker of the special order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My questions have been answered.
Oh, gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Numbers 873-426/1.
Amendment number 1.
So what the amendment does is, under the bill, page 3 of the reprint, each of the following grounds shall constitute good cause in a local law or ordinance adopted under the section. So number 8 speaks to different family members that that would allow a just cause eviction to occur. So under the current bill, as amended by the committee, only a landlord's spouse, child, parent, or grandparent would be qualifying under that. This amendment expands the list to be spouse, child, or stepchild, parent, or step-parent, grandparent, sibling, mother-in-law, or father-in-law, daughter-in-law, or son-in-law, grandchild, or aunt and uncle. So to explain the rationale behind the amendment, I'm familiar with USDA rural housing, and in those leases for low-income and very low-income citizens in our state and the nation, frankly, there are just cause rules and regulations. These are multifamily properties with federal dollars and perhaps state dollars, and so the public good is served by severe restrictions as to what a property owner can and can't do. The other restriction is that in these projects, you're not allowed to have family members living in these properties or people that you know. This is meant for specific uses. So if we're going to adopt the just cause, which is called good cause in this bill, what I would say is that this amendment acknowledges the private sector aspect of housing and granting some relief under certain circumstances. So I'd ask the body to support the amendment.
Chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question for the maker of the amendment.
Yes.
If we adopt this amendment, will you be supporting the bill on third reader?
I will not be able to support the bill on third reader.
All right. Well, even though you said that, the Chair of Economic Matters assures me we can take one amendment a term, and so here we are. We are taking this as a friendly amendment if the body votes for it. So thank you for the well-crafted amendment.
You're saying something else?
Just move the amendment.
I was about to call it, so okay. On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The amendment passed. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 31. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 566, state and local government, real property, Confederate naming prohibited. Favorable report is amended and adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the special order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We do not have an amendment this morning.
Any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 32. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 785, Freedom to Read Act. Favorable report is amended and adopted.
Where's Mangio? Maker of the special order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
This is
we got to get it.
Sorry. It's 0785-493-622-1.
Amendment number 1.
So I appreciate the opportunity to speak here for this amendment. It's very simple. All this amendment does is add to the bill a certain standard that prohibits obscene materials at a school library. And this is already in criminal law, and I will just read the definition here of obscene as written in the criminal law, that the average adult applying contemporary community standards would find that the work taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest, that the work depicts sexual conduct specified in subsection of this section in a way that is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable material. And the last part here, part 3, is that the work taken as a whole lacks serious artistic, educational, literary, political, or scientific value, which I think speaks perfect to our school libraries. And I'll just add this, that of course we can all agree school libraries are important resources for students. They provide access to a wide range of educational material to support the learning and academic development. And while libraries should strive to offer varied perspectives and literature that challenges students, it would be completely inappropriate and wrong for them to include obscene material. So we can add this amendment, take a stand here, protect K through 12 students from obscenities. Very simple. All this amendment does is really represent guardrails as already present in our criminal law, and we should just solidify it here and add it to the bill. So thank you, Madam Speaker. I press the amendment.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I do thank the good delegate for sharing his amendment in advance with the committee. So as he referenced, this is already part of state statute. We already have in the criminal law article the ability for someone to be charged with a misdemeanor if they willingly, that a person may not willingly or knowingly display or exhibit to a minor an item that includes obscene content or depiction of illicit sex, or that consists of an obscene picture or a nude or partially covered nude figure. That is already in state law, so we don't need this amendment. That existing state statute does not have any carve out for libraries. This amendment actually doesn't do anything because it is already part of our state law that is illegal and the person can be charged with a misdemeanor. So I would urge colleagues to resist this amendment because it is not needed.
Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm glad to know that it's already happening, and I'm here to tell you it's failing. I'm holding here on my desk the book Gender Queer, and I'm going to describe to you what happens on page 135. You can find this in our schools' libraries. It's a depiction of a grown man with an erection caressing the erection of a minor child. And it's not displayed in an educational manner, it's in a cartoon. This is a graphic novel, and it discusses the sexual interests of 11 and 12-year-olds, and it depicts this image as essentially a sexual fantasy of a prepubescent child. So I don't know what you think our state has done, but it has failed miserably, because this book is in our schools, and not just that, it shows up in some of the curriculums from some of our teachers in this very state. We have just passed bills on second reader yesterday banning the use of cartoon images to sell products like Kraton to children. But here we are in our school systems selling pedophilia to our prepubescent children. So, Madam Speaker, I fully support this amendment. I'm appalled that anyone dare to say that we already have this problem covered, because I am sitting here staring at this image right now. Anyone who would like to see how disgusting this is welcome to come back to the Republican wing and see it. Thank you.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I'll preface this by saying I'm not a lawyer, but it is my understanding that the Supreme Court and other courts have repeatedly, over the years and over the decades, ruled on students' First Amendment rights, which includes not just the right to free speech, but the right to receive information. And there have been multiple rulings about school libraries in particular and students' right to receive information, and that protected right under the First Amendment. And the courts have ruled, for instance, quote, that speech that is neither obscene as to youths nor subject as to some other legitimate prescription cannot be suppressed solely to protect the young from ideas or images that a legislative body thinks unsuitable for them. And that the local school boards may not remove books from school libraries simply because they dislike the ideas contained in those books. So this comes down to fundamental rights under our Constitution, which are children also have those same First Amendment rights. Our schools take very seriously what is appropriate to include in their school libraries or not. They are looking at the state and local school curriculums. In many cases, our school districts have very detailed policies about how they manage their library collections, how books get entered into the library collection, requirements not just for one person to make that decision, but for multiple staff people in the school library system to be reviewing books, to also looking at reviews that are done by other professionals in other places before making the decision as to whether or not to purchase and actually put a book on the shelf. So ultimately, this bill is about protecting our students' First Amendment rights. And again, I would just point back to that the amendment that is before the body right now is already covered in state law, and this amendment would simply be redundant with what is in state law.
Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It sounds like the floor leader was saying that that book was okay, but then you said it should be covered under obscene material. I can tell you that this is one of a number of books that is in our Baltimore County public schools, libraries, and public libraries. And there were a group of women that tried to have some of these books removed because they're inappropriate for young children. And this one book I'm going to read you a few things about that is in our school libraries and public libraries that would not be if this amendment passes, because it's pornographic and it's obscene, and we should be protecting children, young minds, from this. We don't put Playboy, we don't put Hustler, we don't put other materials in school libraries because they're inappropriate. And I love that the Speaker's bill is part of the decency agenda, and this will help make it decent. This is a cartoon book, which is clearly aimed at children, and it has little vignettes. And it talks about a brief Tinder journey. This is for middle school and high school kids. And then says, fast forward, we've been dating for 2 months. We've made out, we've had sex, we've moved on to sexting at work. So we're teaching kids sexting's okay. Here's the sexting conversation between two people. I got a new strap-on harness today. I can't wait to put it on you. It will fit my favorite dildo perfectly. You are going to look so hot. It goes on to have very obscene language that, as a grandmother, I couldn't possibly read on this floor. But then it has pictures of people engaged in sex acts, cartoon pictures of people engaged in sex acts. It's disgusting, it's obscene, and it does not belong in our school libraries or in our public libraries where children can see it. And what our state's attorney told us when a group of moms tried to have this book removed from children's eyes and minds was that he couldn't do it. So this amendment will ensure that this material is not available. As a mom and a grandmom, I'm begging you, this is important. We do not want our children exposed to this pornography and pedophilia, and I'm happy to share this information with you because it is so obscene, I cannot read it on the House floor. So I urge you to support this amendment for the children, for their minds and their health.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I'd point you to the committee amendments. As passed by the Ways and Means Committee, the bill requires that every local school district have a policy and set of procedures in place for reviewing challenged books so that students, their parents, school personnel have a process, a formalized process, for which they can raise objections about a particular work that is in a school library. And that book or other material will then be reviewed and potentially, depending on the decision of that process, to come off the shelves. Again, this is something that many of our public school districts are already doing. In some cases, these are very robust committees that are not just made up of school personnel, but include students and parents from the school system who are collectively making these decisions and recommendations after reading the entirety of the work and not just pulling out excerpts. So we have this covered under the committee amendments, and we are making sure that our local school districts have processes in place to review materials and to potentially remove them.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Brief question for the floor leader, if I could, please. So you're
Floor
partially...
leader.
Thank you so much. So you're partially right about the First Amendment issues in this scope of policy. However, in Criminal Law 11203, there are already some, there's the case law constitutional protections, for example, that the work taken as a whole lacks serious artistic, educational, literary, political, or scientific value. That's already part of 11203, which is the statute that governs obscene material. The problem that we're faced here is that there is no enforcement. The school systems are essentially sitting by and in some cases fighting us to keep what are objectively obscene materials in the schools. This set of statute has essentially two qualifications: that material is prurient, that is sexual, and that it's objectionable to contemporary adult standards. That means if you or I felt that it wasn't appropriate for children, the obscenity law would apply. So my question is, if a material is both prurient and objectionable to adults, why would we not want enforcement in environments where the populations are exclusively youth?
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it's important to take a step back here and to think about the context of why this bill is before us. And it's because we have seen a significant increase in the number of books being challenged in our public schools and in our public libraries. And the most frequent reasons for books being challenged is because they contain subject matter related to LGBTQIA individuals or characters, or because of content related to race. So I think reasonable people can disagree or have a difference of opinions on those given issues, and everyone is entitled to have their own opinion. But what this bill is ultimately about is saying that you have a right to decide what you are going to read, and you have a right to decide as a parent what your children may or may not read, but you don't have a right to decide what other people's children will read. And I'll say I am a parent of a public school student, and that's a decision that we are making in our own family about what is suitable for my son, but other people should not be making that decision for my son.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to the floor leader. On the bill, Madam Speaker.
On the bill.
So I think we have a difference of opinion here. I think most frequently we hear that it's about sex or race. I would respectfully disagree. I think that we love all Marylanders, including the populations that the gentlelady mentioned this morning. I think we have a real problem with the over-sexualization of youth. I didn't grow up in an environment where we were continually subject on social media, on TV, now in schools with what are really not appropriate images for people to see. I'd be dumbfounded if one of my children told me a story about how they saw in school pictures of an adult caressing the parts of a young child. I think it's inappropriate. And I think we have a real disagreement on policy here, and that we could protect our youth by adopting this amendment.
On the amendment, all in favor
Madam
signify by saying aye.
Madam Speaker. Yeah, we'll just push the amendment. It's fine.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, to explain my vote, I'll be brief. No, I appreciate the floor leader's comments, and but I will say but reviewing is after the fact, and as the gentleladies from Hartford and Baltimore explained, and my colleague from Baltimore as well to my left, I mean, these were obscene material that were already allowed. All this amendment did, it represented a guardrail. It states that the material in our school libraries won't be obscene. This is basically rewriting library standards. I mean, this is a 20-page bill that I'm holding in my hand. We can at least, as like I said in this amendment, make specific or make guarantees, safeguards. This should have been added that we would not allow certain material. It ensures that public school libraries do not contain these obscene materials. That's why I voted green. Disappointing to see this go down. Thank you.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Minority Whip.
Madam Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk. The amendment number is 123629.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
So the amendment's technically written, but what it does is, as was alluded to earlier by the floor leader, there's a review process outlined in the bill, and what my amendment says is that during the review process, the material that was objected to is withheld until the conclusion of that review process. And I'll give a background on why I put this amendment in. So I have 2 boys, right? I've said that, I've shared that, you guys have probably seen them. My oldest is 7 years old, and he's a voracious reader, which we love. That boy reads every night. Put a book in front of him, he'll read until he goes to sleep. We love it. He's learning about everything. And for some reason, he has taken on like historical battles. It's bizarre. But he reads about the Civil War, the Revolutionary War. He's fascinated with battlefields. He goes up to Gettysburg, and we love everything about it. So my in-laws, my oldest's grandparents, gave him a Civil War book that depicted actual footage from these battles. And I don't know if most of you remember, but the photography was really came out in the mid-1800s. And so a lot of these depictions on the battlefield were of dead bodies. So here I am encouraging my kids to read. I'm supporting them in their endeavor. But my son has a book that depicts actual bodies and laying all over the battlefield, injured, disfigured, mutilated. And when I found out about it, obviously my spouse and I pulled the book and we talked about it. And I use this example because that's kind of like the review period. So as outlined in the bill, if there's an objection made to material, the bill calls for a review period. All I'm asking for is during that review period, whether it's 15 days, that the pictures that may be inappropriate, not age appropriate, is held until the review period is concluded. And look, if they conclude that it's not obscene, and then they can put it back in circulation. But I give this example because put yourself in my shoes. So you pull up in your kid's book, and I'm like, my kid's been reading about the Civil War and seeing dead bodies every night before going to bed. We thought that was inappropriate for now. We talked about it. And then ultimately we made a decision. And so that's what this amendment does. It's a very prudent amendment. What it says is that if there's an official objection to some material, that during the review period, the material is withheld until it's ruled upon whether it's going to stay in circulation or not. So Madam Speaker, I move the amendment. Thank you.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the good delegate for providing his amendment to the committee this morning. And first of all, I really appreciate hearing the story about his family, because I think that's exactly the way that this should be working, that parents should be having conversations with their children about what is appropriate or not for their child. They know their child best, and to make those decisions as a family for what their child should be reading or looking at or not. And also to say, I'm glad to hear his son's a reader. Maybe he can give some tips to my son. So again, if we look at how things have been playing out here in Maryland, we have seen mass challenges to books in at least 8 public school districts, including the district that I represent, in the last year or two. And in at least one of those districts, while the books were being challenged, even when the review committee, which took a very substantive approach and holistic approach to reviewing these books, decided that the book should go back on the shelf, the school district did not reshelve the books. And in fact, some of these books have been off the shelf for more than a year in this school district. In our courts, we have a presumption of innocent until proven guilty. I think we can take a similar approach in terms of looking at these books. And in fact, that is what the Supreme Court, again, if we look back at case law, I'm not a lawyer, but the Supreme Court has said that there needs to be protections in place to prevent the suppression of non-obscene materials. And when more sweeping, broader policies have been put in place in the past to just wholesale remove items or to keep them off the library shelf for long periods of time, the courts have struck that down and have said that that is not protective of people's First Amendment rights. So for these reasons, I would ask the body to resist this amendment.
Maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So my amendment, I'm sure you've read, it's 15 days, right? So it's not long periods of time. And look, let's use an obscene image as an example. Once that's seen by the minor, that can cause damage. You know, so allowing this process to, this committee to review the objection over long periods of time, the damage is continuing to go. I mean, what is the harm in if somebody makes a legitimate objection, there's a formal process in place as the bill dictates, and then while that formal process is being concluded, the obscene material is just held until someone says, hey, look, it's not obscene, and they can incorporate First Amendment rights and such. But if somebody makes a legitimate claim that there's something highly offensive and highly inappropriate, and why would we allow that to continue to circulate until somebody has an official ruling? I mean, let's flip it. What if their official ruling comes back and says, oh, you're right, that was highly inappropriate and that should have never been in this library? I mean, we've done damage at that point. You know, as a body, we've done damage because we allowed that. Matter of fact, you mentioned the law earlier. There's several legal instrumentalities where somebody could go into a judge and get a temporary hold on information, especially if it can cause damage. You know, and so that's what I'm asking for, is it's a short-term solution to where in the event there's something that's highly offensive, highly inappropriate, that we shouldn't allow the kids to share around, that there's a process in place where that information can be held, they can make an official ruling, and let the justice system play out. And so again, I move the amendment. I don't know what the rational argument would be to not temporarily hold obscene information until the locals can make a decision on it. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We in the committee amendments have taken a careful approach here to make sure that there is local control over deciding what is appropriate for particular school libraries. And I will point folks to the part in the bill where local school districts are required to establish a reasonable time frame to conduct and conclude the review process in a timely manner. We want to make sure that each district, and in each case, has the time that they need to review a book. And for districts that have decided to have larger, let's say, review committees that include, again, not just school personnel, but students and parents, that they actually have the time to read the book and to review it. Nothing in this bill specifies that there's a minimum amount of time that they need to take. If there was really a real concern on a book, they could expedite things. A review committee could get through that decision much more quickly, potentially, than the 15 days. I think where the potential harm here is that under this amendment, you could have serial objections where you could have a review, the book comes off the shelf for 15 days, then someone else puts in a challenge, the book comes off the shelf for 15 days, and this happens over and over and over again. And in essence, it becomes a de facto book ban on that book. There's no protections here on that right, so I would continue to urge the body to resist the amendment.
Maker of the amendment.
It's my final bite, Madam Speaker. So, and I know you just got the amendment this morning. So the amendment says whichever is sooner. So the last language in the amendment, it says 15 days or whatever sooner. So for example, if you had a very prudent, expedient local jurisdiction that did book reviews in 1 hour, it's held for 1 hour. So, and that's in there for their protection too. So with that, Madam Speaker, I move the amendment. Thank you.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone care to change their vote? If not, clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment number 683725-1.
Amendment number 1.
Floor leader, please rise. Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendment. Sorry about that.
So ordered.
Thank you, Floor Leader. I shared this with you this morning. This amendment body just eliminates the right to use for the public school space in these libraries. And so what this bill aims to do, it's on page 2 of the committee amendments, is that we don't have hate groups coming into these public schools and utilizing these spaces. So what we're asking for is local control for these local schools to prevent this from happening in these educational spaces. We don't want to promote hate. We don't want to have these spaces utilized from these groups. It's just outright wrong. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I ask to push the amendment.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the delegate for sharing his amendment in advance. I'll actually point out, I don't think your amendment does quite what you think that it does. There's a different provision in the bill that has to do with use of space in the bill about making, in particular public schools, is a school library should make its public spaces and facilities available to all students and school personnel on an equitable basis. So I think maybe that was your intent with the amendment, but I don't want to presume what your intentions were here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking at page 2 of the amendments, items 4 and 5, is striking that language there.
And I think actually your amendment might have does strike the point above that about the right to use, excuse me, a school library belongs to all students and school personnel, and that they should not be, that access should not be denied or hindered because of an individual's origin, background, or views. But that's okay. We can talk about the space issue if you'd like. I think again your amendment doesn't quite do what you think that it does.
Well, I ask to move the amendment, Madam Speaker.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their amendment? Anyone care to change? Not, the clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 33. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1302, cosmetologist, aesthetic services definition. Favorable report is amended and adopted.
Recognizing gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment 313524/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
This amendment is simple. It just takes out applying eyelash extensions from being regulated in this bill. I think this is a great business, small business for lots of women, especially in the Black and brown communities where we know people like to be able to have eyelash extensions applied. Also, of course, in all communities. And it also deals with eyebrows. Currently, taking eyebrows out of the regulation portion, the place that I go to get my nails to my pedicures, they do eyebrows there. They are not, I don't think we need to start licensing eyebrow waxing, plucking, and threading. So with that, I would ask that the committee take a favorable look at this amendment.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the good delegate for Baltimore County for bringing this amendment to us. I thank you for acknowledging the Black and brown communities. I personally don't use these eyelashes, but I understand that you support the small business community, as do I. I just want to reiterate to the members to start off by saying I would resist the amendment. I do thank you for the amendment. I will say that the estheticians, they already are licensed. We're not creating a new license. This structure already exists. Having said that, what this Bill 1302 does is just open up the scope of what practices and services estheticians can do now. So it would not preclude those who are performing eyelash extensions, eyebrow, makeup, what have you, it does not preclude them from doing so. So I would resist the amendment.
Madam Speaker.
General Lader from Harvard.
Thank you. I just have a question for the floor leader. I just want to make sure I understand.
Floor leader.
Thank you. So what you're saying is currently if like my lash tech, don't judge me, doesn't have to have a license as an esthetician to do this work or as a cosmetologist, and after we include this stuff under their new licensing, it doesn't in any way penalize the people who are not currently licensed that are still doing it.
Correct. We are not creating a new license.
Right.
If your eyelash woman is an esthetician, this opens up this service for her to do, or him to do.
Okay, okay.
We're not creating new license, and we're not precluding those who do it now without a license from doing so.
So is there, he's got a lot of opinions over here. You want to be the floor leader? No? Okay.
He's floor leader enough.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. We'll just ignore that. He doesn't even know what fake eyelashes are. Please stop. So just to reassure myself, there's no penalty right now if actually my lash person's male. But anyways, let's not judge.
I did recognize the males.
Yeah, he did a great job. So he's not going to get in any trouble and be in violation of these licenses because he doesn't have a license. I just want to make sure we're not punishing.
Is he an esthetician?
I did not ask him.
Well, if he's an esthetician,
I think he doesn't have a license at all. So I think he has no license.
Okay, but then he's not an esthetician. This deals with the esthetician services, the scope of what they are able. So you can't get in trouble. Like I couldn't get in trouble if I wanted to go into this industry and I just was like, well, I'm gonna glue this on your face and you're gonna look great. That's a whole nother bill.
Okay, so but there's no penalties associated with not getting a license. Okay, all right. I just want to make sure they're not gonna get in trouble because I don't want to have to pay more, y'all.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 137 members present, the House is still in session. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 43. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 62, State Employee Rights and Protections, Personnel Actions and Harassment Investigation of Complaints.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 62, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 78, Maryland Environmental Service, Governance and Requirements.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 78, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk, read. Yes.
My button didn't work. I'd like to be recorded in the green on that last bill, please. Thank you.
Get the slip up there. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 155, Maryland Energy Administration Carbon Capture Opportunity Program Establishment.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 102 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 155, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 197, unemployment insurance, work search requirement, exemption for federal civilian employees during a federal government shutdown.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 104 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 197, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 666, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, State Supplement.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If it would be possible for the floor leader, the committee leader, to just address the question that I had before we take the vote on the bill. Essentially, as I understand it, this is increasing or enhancing a state supplement for SNAP benefits, which I think is generally a good thing. In the fiscal sense, is there a source of funds that the Appropriations Committee was able to identify to sort of bring these new monies in that's not taking from general funds or creating tax liabilities? Was there some pocket of money out there shaking around in the budget that you were able to utilize for this objective?
I am so grateful to be asked this question. Thank you, Mr.
Sure.
Minority Leader. This bill, as introduced, had a pretty large fiscal note. As it was drafted, it was going to raise the minimum benefit from $23 a month to $95 a month, which would have cost $48 million from the general fund. We amended it down significantly to target our most vulnerable seniors. So adding a little bit of benefit to their existing current minimum of $40 a month for groceries. So we're moving it to $50 a month for them, adding in 60 and 61-year-olds. The total cost for that is $4.2 million, but we were able to shift funds from cost savings within the Health and Social Services budget. We shifted $3.2 million over that was already allocated in the governor's budget for fiscal 25. It will cover all but $1 million. And for a total of 31,800 seniors, 60 and over, we get to add supplemental benefits, bringing the minimum benefit for those seniors to $50 a month.
Okay, so I appreciate that. It sounds like you were able to find the money through some creative and intelligent means, and it's only for the benefit of senior citizens so that
That's
we're
correct.
making sure that their needs are being met. I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll certainly vote green on the bill. I appreciate it.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 125 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 666, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 709, licensed real estate brokers, branch offices, designation of managers.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 709, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 44. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 764, State Lottery Fund, Bus Rapid Transit Fund Distribution, and Prince George's County Blue Line Corridor Facility Fund alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 116 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 764, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 768, Judges Retirement System Special Death Benefit.
is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 768, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 807, Natural Resources Submerged Aquatic Vegetation Surveys.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 807, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 873, Appraisal Gap from Historic Redlining Financial Assistance Program, alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 127 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 873, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 891, Seed Community Development Anchor Institution Fund, alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 891, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 914, Winery and Vineyard Economic Development Grant Program, modifications.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 914, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 45. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1163, State Department of Education, Division of Rehabilitation Services, funding.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1163, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1212, State Retirement and Pension System, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Governance Program.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 104 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1212, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1273, Vehicle Laws, Manufacturers and Dealers, Delivery of Vehicles.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1273, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1334, Housing and Community Development, Continuing the Core Partnership Fund Extension.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 104 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1334, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1362, State Board of Cosmetologists membership alteration.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1362, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1434, Department of Human Services, electronic benefits transfer cards, restoration of benefits.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 106 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1434, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 46. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 252, Insurance Holding Companies Group Capital Calculation and Liquidity Stress Test.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 120 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 252, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 966, Law Enforcement Officers Pension System, reemployment as sheriff.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 966, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 996, Consumer Protection, Consumer Council, name change.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 996, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 998, Maryland Department of Labor Unemployment Insurance Study on Actively Seeking Work Requirements.
Is on third reading and final passage.
Madam Speaker.
Is there any debate? The Vice Chair from the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question for the floor leader?
Yes, sir.
Floor leader.
How you doing? Can you tell me the vote in committee?
The vote was almost unanimous except for one.
And did both sponsors of the bill vote for this in committee?
Apparently not. Apparently they didn't. That was Wanika Fisher, though.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. The clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 998, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1009, Public Health Federally Qualified Health Centers Grant Program, Recovery of Funding.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1009, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1082, Blueprint for Maryland's Future Implementation, Funding, and Independent Evaluation, alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 112 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1082, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, Chairman of.
Thank you, Madam
Chair.
Speaker. My button didn't work on that last bill. I'd like to be recorded in the green. I'll send up my yellow form. Thank you.
All right. Calendar of third reading House Bills number 47. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 22, Agriculture Pollinator Habitat Plan, requirements for State Highway Administration.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There have been 137 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 22, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 183, Human Services Food Supplement Program and Human Services Career Scholarships, alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 123 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 183, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 225, Sustainable Growth Subcabinet and repeal of the Office of Smart Growth.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 225, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 265, Insurance Producer, Licensing Requirements, Education and Experience.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 265, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 481, Natural Resources Antlerless Deer Hunting Programs, authorization.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 481, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 512, Natural Resources, Fish and Fisheries, Reporting Requirements.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 512, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading House Bills number 48. Clerk will read the first bill. Gentleman from Prince George's.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to be recorded in the green for House Bill 481.
Okay, slip. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 676, Right to Try Act, Individualized Investigational Treatments.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 676, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 726, Pharmacy Benefits Managers, Definition of Purchaser, and Alteration of Application of Law.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 726, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 829, Public Health Service Sector Employees Mental Health Awareness and Skills Building Training.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 829, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 959, Health Occupations Certified Dialysis Technicians Continuing Education Requirements.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 959, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1053, State Board of Nursing Executive Director Qualifications.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1053, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1229, Public Health Kratom Consumer Protection Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1229, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker, vote change on House Bill 481 to nay.
Okay. Slip up. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 49. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 499, Health Occupations Private Dental Offices Infection Control.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 499, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 845, Income Tax Individual Income Tax Credit Eligibility Awareness Campaign.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 128 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 845, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 879, Health Benefit Plans Calculation of Cost-Sharing Contribution Requirements.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 879, having received the Constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 894, procurement, scrutinize entities, prohibition.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 894, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1195, child care providers, anaphylactic food allergies, guidelines and indemnity, Elijah's Law.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1195, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1230, Public Health, Tianeptine Consumer Protection Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1230, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker?
Yes, gentlelady from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In calendar 46, if I could please change, well, can I please vote for HB 1082 to record my vote to aye? Yes.
Need this.
My button didn't work, ma'am.
Bring the slip up. Have the slip.
Yeah, the finger. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to change my vote on House Bill 225 to red, and I'll turn in my slip. Thank you.
Yes,
Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 225 to red, please.
Gentlelady from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change from green to red on House Bill 481.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change on HB 225 from green to red.
Gentleman from Calvert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. HB 996 to red.
Gentleman from St. Mary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. HB 225 to red.
Any other vote changes?
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 225 to red.
All right. No more. Okay. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 50. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 51, Public Health, Maryland Pediatric Cancer Fund and Commission.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 51, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 475, Education Open Source Phonics Matching Grant Program, Establishment Open Source Phonics Matching Grant Program Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 475, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 490, Income Tax Subtraction Modification for Donations to Diaper Banks and Other Charitable Entities, Sunset Extension.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 490, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 501, Charter Counties, Enforcement of Local Laws.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the minority.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can I ask a few questions to a floor leader about this bill?
Okay,
No
floor
problem.
leader.
Sure, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon. So I did read the bill, did read the fiscal note, and I just want to make sure I have it correct. So currently, in law, in state law, or counties are allowed to fine constituents of that county, up, or I guess anybody, quite
Local
frankly.
governments, not
Local
just
governments.
counties.
Okay.
Local governments.
Okay. For ordinance violations up to $1,000.
Correct.
Okay. And this bill removes that cap.
It does not. It raises it to $5,000. The cap is raised from $1,000 to $5,000, and it's for code enforcement violations.
Okay. I mean, tomato, tomato. So it removes the cap of 1,000 to 5,000, right?
Well, I wouldn't call it removing it. I would say lifting it.
Okay. Okay. A high tide raises all boats. All right. I feel you. All right. So I'm going to be voting against this bill, and the reason why is because there's an ungodly amount of ordinances in Frederick County, and now constituents, individuals that live in the county can be fined up to $5,000 per ordinance violation. So, thank you.
Yes, that's what this bill does. It raises the, it hasn't been raised in quite some time, and it is for people who violate the local laws.
Okay. Was there a request by the counties to do this for purposes of raising money?
It was requested by the counties, but I wasn't for raising money as far as I know.
Okay. Okay.
It was a policy question, as far as
Policy.
I know.
Okay. Thank you. So for all those reasons, a 500% increase in fines on ordinances, I'll be voting against the bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker,
Gentleman from Eastern Shore.
could the floor leader rise for a question?
Floor leader.
I just want to confirm this is enabling law?
It remains enabling. It's up to $5,000, and it's enforcing the local law.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 107 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 501, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 613, Natural Resources, Recreational Catching of Oysters or Clams Requirements.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 122 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 613, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1134, Hospitals and Related Institutions, Residential Treatment Centers, Accreditation.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1134, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of yes.
I have a vote change. Yeah, thank you, Madam. House Bill 225. Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 225 into the nay. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, vote change.
Yes. Gentleman for Anne Arundel. Huh?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 501 from yay to nay. I'll get up my slip. Thank you.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change on House Bill 613 to red.
And the other vote changes. Gentlelady from Harvard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. HB 225 to nay. Thank you.
Alrighty. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 51. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 100, Inheritance Tax, Beneficiaries of Limited Means Installment Payments.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 100, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 454, Disclosure of Tax Information, Tax Compliance Activity, and Binding Data Use Agreements.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 101 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 454, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 471, Election Law, Post-Election Procedures.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 471, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 548, Task Force on Responsible Use of Natural Psychedelic Substances.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 548, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 582, Economic Development, Entrepreneurial Innovation Programs Establishment, Pavel Lapierre Act, Legacy of Innovation Act of 2024.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 582, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1393, Electric System Planning, Scope, and Funding.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 116 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1393, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 52. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 977, Somerset County, Sale of Property, Revels Neck Road.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 977, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 992, Environment Delegated Authorities Well and Septic Program Permits.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 992, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1055, Environment Highway Salt Application.
is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 105 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1055, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1097, State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners, Veterinary Technicians, and Veterinary Assistants.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1097, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1153, Environment, Water Pollution Control, Protecting State Waters from PFAS Pollution, Protecting State Waters from PFAS Pollution Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 105 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1153, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was saying the gentleman from the Eastern Shore, unless he doesn't want
Thank
to
you.
go.
Vote change. House Bill 992 from yea to nay.
Gentlelady from Hartford.
Thank you. Sorry, I saw up earlier and you didn't see me, so I sat back down. But anyway, I missed it. Vote change on 225 to nay. Thank you.
Gentlelady from Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 225 to nay, please.
From the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I haven't changed a vote in 2 years, and I'm going to change 2 today. Could I get the change on House Bill 454 to red?
All right, any vote change? Gentlelady from Frederick.
225 to nay, please, Madam Speaker.
Get your slips up. Any other vote changes? Okay. Calendar of third reading House Bills number 53. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 860, Housing and Community Development, Community Action Boards.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 860, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 918, State Treasurer and Comptroller, Membership Responsibilities.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 918, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 928, Washington County Procurement Vehicles.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 928, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 929, Agriculture Nuisance Insects.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 929, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 976, Somerset County Fire Companies Appropriations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 976, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1140, Education Virtual Tutoring Services, Background Checks and Fingerprinting.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1140, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Calvert.
Thank you. I'd like to be recorded in the affirmative for House Bill 929. I'll get my slip up. Thank you.
Okay. Calendar, I'm sorry.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore City.
Apologies, I want to be recorded in the green on 136, Madam Speaker. I blame my senator.
Sounds good to me. Okay. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 54. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 86, Public and Non-Public Schools, Bronchodilators, Use, Availability, Training, and Policies.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 86, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 594, Legal Advertisement or Legal Notice in Dorchester County, Publication in Newspaper or Newspaper in General Circulation, Digital Newspapers.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 594, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 805, Cannabis Licensee Locations Restrictions.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 805, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1004, State Retirement and Pension System, Average Final Compensation, Compensation Adjustments.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1004, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 55. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1219, Public and Non-Public Middle and High Schools, Venue-Specific Emergency Action Plans for Athletic Facilities, the Bailey-Bullock Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1219, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1244, Maryland Higher Education Commission, Academic Program Approval and Institutional Mission Statements, Requirements.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1244, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1296, electricity offshore wind projects alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the intent and effort and the legislative record that has been made in our debate yesterday, I believe. The days all run together. I think it was yesterday. Regarding that, we're basically going to say we're not going to give U.S. Wind any more money, or we're not going to guarantee them a payment per kilowatt any more than what we agreed to several years ago. We're not going to do that. That's what we've said very clearly. I hope that that's the case and we stick to that, because I have a strong suspicion, doing an awful lot of reading the last couple of days about wind projects. I don't think there's a single wind project that has occurred, offshore wind, in the country that they have not had to go back and significantly increase the value. That's why Ørsted pulled out. There are 2 operating wind projects, I believe, in the nation. There's a test project that I think has 2 turbines that doesn't really generate any meaningful energy off the coast of Virginia, and there's another one, I think the original one, in Block Island off the coast of Rhode Island. That's it. When the world's largest producer of offshore wind, which is what Ørsted is, comes to you and says, I can't do the project at the prices that we agreed to X number of years ago. I need a lot more or I'm out. And they've not done this just here. They've done it in other places. We keep talking about there'll be someone else, but I don't think that that's the case. And that's why I'll vote against the bill. I trust my friend from Charles County and his hard work on the bill, and I hope that we stick to that. But don't be shocked. I think most of us, probably all of us, hopefully all of us, will still be sitting here in 2026. And don't be shocked if there's no turbines flying on the U.S. wind project, or don't be shocked that in order to do that, somebody says, I need more money. Because contrary to, I think, what has been expressed, there is no loss leader in the offshore wind business. A loss leader is when you come in and say, I'm going to sell you a product at a negative, or maybe I'm losing a little money, maybe I'm breaking even, but I'm getting you in for all this other business. There's no other business for an offshore wind producer. That's the business that they're in, and they're not going to be able to make a profit at the current rates. And that subsidy, whether we want to call it not a subsidy, whether we want to call it a guaranteed price, whatever it is, that extra money to get these wind projects up and running is either going to come from your constituent ratepayers, or it's going to come from the taxpayer. It's just basic economics. And on that basis, I encourage people to vote red against the bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And in committee, I've had 2 apples to bite through, and I'm not going to belabor the point too much because I feel like we've had a good vetting of this bill. But on the bill, Madam Speaker, I have raised in committee the purpose paragraph, which supports the minority leader's position, but also the good gentleman from Worcester County that has in his district this project that's going to impact him. But this is going to impact all Marylanders and the rates, and then the taxpayers who try to make these projects move forward. But in the purpose paragraph, it says this bill is for the purpose of requiring the Public Service Commission to open a certain proceeding to evaluate offshore wind projects, and to authorize certain offshore wind projects to submit certain revised plans, and listen to this, for project schedule, sizes, or pricing. Now, it does say that the pricing can include offshore wind renewable energy credit pricing, and under certain circumstances seek approval from the Commission to increase the maximum amount of offshore wind renewable energy credits. So I think we're both right. I think the chairman of the committee is saying ORECs are what they are. What I will tell you is that Public Service Commission is going to reopen the proceedings to discuss the viability of this project. They are surely going to hear from those that want to advance offshore wind and how the market and the economy has changed under their feet. And I believe that the amendments that were being brought, both the gentleman from the Republican Party, are responsive to our concerns that if the project's going to move forward, that we need to make sure we're holding the taxpayer harmless. That was the one amendment, but the ratepayer harmless, which was the gentleman from Worcester County's amendment. So with that being said, I'll just remind the body that the purpose paragraph of this bill opens proceedings with the Public Service Commission. They will hear testimony from these companies that will need more money. Thank you very much. And I'll be voting against the bill.
Gentleman from Calvert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just wanted to talk a bit about how these turbines are built. For the past 30 years, I've had the benefit and been very fortunate to build cell phone towers. They're mostly monopoles now. That's all that's required, and that's all that's allowed. And when we build a 195-foot tall monopole, that's the norm, 195 feet tall, we drill into the ground sometimes 60 feet, sometimes 65 feet, to be able to support that monopole. And this is on dry land, but it's analogous to what this bill would do. And we're required to bring in a slurry to clean the water and the sludge that we pull out of the ground 60, 65 feet below. It's an environmental process to make sure that when you're disposing of the product that you're bringing out, that it's clean. And then we finally stack the pole onto the foundation, which is made of concrete and steel and rebar and so forth. And for a long time, there was this thought process that birds would fly into these poles, and instead, osprey are actually nesting in the poles. And that's because they don't have any moving products on top of the pole. This bill contemplates poles that are nearly 1,000 feet tall and banging steel and or drilling into the surface of the ocean foundations, which will create enormous environmental damage. And there's no slurry involved because you can't use a slurry because of the simple fact that you're underwater. You're automatically going to be polluting the water when you put these foundations in. That is a fact. Not to mention the enormous noise that is created when you drill and or pile drive into the ocean floor. Then there's this massive turbine that sounds like a jet engine that's on top of this pole that creates enormous vibrations above and below the water. That's a fact. Wind turbines offshore actually are destroying the environment. You are not solving climate change. You are destroying the environment. Think it through. I just gave you the examples. I do this for a living. I don't put wind turbines up, to be clear. But the fact of the matter is the process under the ocean is incredibly environmentally destructive. And it doesn't take a genius to figure it out when you think it through. You are not pro-environment. You're just suspending critical thinking skills. And for all those reasons, I am definitely voting no on this incredibly ridiculous bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As always, I tip my hat to my venerated and chronologically seasoned colleague from Allegheny County. And I know he wants to hearken back to the halcyon days of yore when drill, baby, drill was the way to go. But since this young man's inception, we've increased our energy use dramatically. Our appetite for natural gas is 17 times what it was when he was a young man. We depend on our energy generation depends on roughly 60% fossil fuels. Because back in his day, there was one TV and one car, and that's if you were lucky, and that's if you're wealthy. But see, now if you look around and you look around your neighborhood, your house, look how much energy we use, the average individual uses. It's astounding. we're second only to China as far as energy consumption as a nation. Per capita, we use 2.5 gallons of oil, 8.2 pounds of coal, and 261 cubic feet of natural gas every single day per person. And I want you to understand, these are not perpetual items. They're not going to be around forever. If you want to use your common sense, realize that we have to do something better than we've been doing, because no matter how deep you drill, the coal is not going to always be there. We talk about protecting the budget for our children. What about protecting the environment or just the ability to produce electricity? So we must invest now. And I guess because, while not as old as my colleague, I'm getting up there. And I remember watching the innovation with computers. Look what we wear on our wrist. We invested in computers. The cost, the potential has skyrocketed because of American ingenuity, or as my colleague says, America. It's important. If we just spent a portion, look at our cars, how far they've come, air travel, medicine, because when this country decides it's going to do something, we do it well. We lead this world in our innovation. And when we talk about cost, look at the cost on fuel dependency. Now, we already talked about the subsidies, so that's hilarious to talk about, cost and how much this is going to cost. We can talk about the health risk, carcinogens in the air, the climate, global warming, ice caps melting, the ocean temperature, wildfires. We could also talk about the soldiers like we did yesterday. We could also talk about the global superpowers that we create by our dependency. These are individuals, Russia, Middle East, they do not share our values. Many are enemies of freedom and democracy, and the only thing that's keeping them going right now is our dependency. See, as a country, we have got to do better than that. What would these countries do if they didn't have our dependency? If all of our allies said, you know what, we're going to find alternative methods. We don't need natural gas and we don't need oil. How many lives have been saved then? I can't sit here and close my eyes and say, you know what, let's do nothing. Because you know why? These turbines aren't perfect. Because that's where innovation comes in. We talked about impact on the ratepayer, as I've discussed. The amount of subsidies that we give the oil industry is outstanding. We talk about not being pro-environment, and I find that somewhat obtuse, but I get it, because whenever you do something, there is an impact. Whenever you drive a boat through the ocean, there's an impact. But as we've said before, there's been an environmental study done. They talk about the noise. We know they call them bubblers. And what they do is when they start hammering these things into the seabed, they have bubblers. It's creating a curtain so it blocks the noise. And when we talk about the turbines and their destructive capabilities, again, this is where America comes in. We're the ones who get to make that better. Other countries have tried to do that. I guarantee you we're going to make it better. And the way we make it better is by partnering with U.S. Wind, a U.S. company. Because Ørsted, which is not a U.S. company, did not find value in us moving our wind projects forward. But our U.S. company did. And so what we'll make sure we do is we partner with them because they've moved forward with us in good faith. And it's our job to support them. And it's their job to do their job and support us. And they're going to build these turbines. It's going to happen. And as I've said, there's no increased cost. They just get more OREX. Why? Because Ørsted left and left them on the table. And I know we have naysayers that say, oh, this is never going to work because apparently America's slow. Apparently we can't innovate when we want to. But understand, we are running out of fuel. You could dig, baby, dig all you want. You will run out of fuel. Your grandkids will suffer from your poor decisions, your poor investments, and your poor thoughts. So instead of saying what we can't do, let's say what America can do. And let's say what Maryland can do. And we can create energy. We can become energy independent. We can send it out to other individuals. We can be the beacon for this country. But we have to put our heart into it. And if you don't believe me, look at your car. Look at your watch. Look at the way we fly. Look at our medicine. But to sit here and say do nothing is a sin. Thomas Jefferson said, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The second best thing you can do is the wrong thing. But the worst thing you can do is nothing. And I don't have the temerity to do nothing in times like this. So for all these things, I ask that you support this bill. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That was a religious experience, you all. I love that quote from Thomas Jefferson. That was beautiful. But we do actually have a beautiful alternative in the state of Maryland and, in fact, in the entire world, and that is nuclear. That is where our money and our investment should be going. It is the cleanest, most effective use of all of our time and effort. It does not involve these giant monstrosities in the middle of our oceans, scattered across our farmlands. Has anybody been to Eastern Europe recently? It is disgusting. I spent hours on trains a few years ago watching nothing but that beautiful countryside spotted and littered with disgusting and non-functioning wind turbines. It's ugly, it's gross, we're not recycling them. They're not even as efficient as we want them to be. So while I am so inspired by the passion of our incredible chairman, this is not where we should be putting our efforts in. We should be focused on nuclear. We should be making it as safe and as effective as possible, because that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to save the future generations. Not a wind turbine that falls apart after 30 years and is sitting there dead and stationary, but a program put in place that can last for 100 years with the proper maintenance and investment. That is where Maryland should go. That is where the country should go, this beautiful country of America, and that is where we as a world should be going. Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Very briefly, just wanted to talk about the math here. The radical majority of our state and our country are ill-suited to generate any sort of capacity via these wind products. And if we look at the basic math of this problem, 30 years from now, what we're going to be doing, where we're going to be drawing our energy from, is nuclear. And that's what we should be talking about. Brandon Shores will be shut down in the coming years before us. And what's the plan? Where are we going to draw that energy from? A nuclear plant across the Pennsylvania state line. Here is the problem with this bill. I don't understand why we continue to insist on pursuing wind as the solution. Clearly, we are moving past dirty energy. But look at the state of it. How many companies do we have offering us a solution? 2? No, it's not 2. How long did Ørsted last? 9 months and they're gone? So what are we going to do? We're going to subsidize it with ratepayer funding. That's what we're going to do. We're not offering a solution. We're buoying a failing industry on the backs of poor and working class people. That's the problem with this bill, and that's the problem with this issue. And I guarantee you, every single one of you are going to face it when the people of your district are asking us why the cost of energy in the state is going up and why it's continually so cost prohibitive just to live in our state. So I'll be voting against this. I look forward to a time when we're actually talking about expanding the clean energy source in our state, and that is nuclear. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Carroll.
Madam Speaker. So we talk about the environment and the concerns, and we're basically told we're sinning if we don't do this. I want to bring to your attention the economic impact, not of the structure that is holding the wind turbines up, but what the blades are actually constructed with, which is a fiberglass covered with tough epoxy resin. And reading from the BBC, not Fox News, the BBC had an article just yesterday or the day before. So we are now creating another economic disaster with these blades. Since 2017, there is a town in the United States, I believe it was Abilene, Texas. They now have a field, 30 acres, filled with these blades. Scientists don't know what to do with these blades. They don't know how to take them apart. They don't know how to recycle them. That's a problem. They are commonly disposed of in landfill sites, but it's becoming less feasible because Germany and Netherlands are now banning the practice. They are predicting 43 million tons of wind turbine blade waste by the year 2050. And scientists have agreed that they're not quite sure how to address this problem. So just Google it, BBC, not coming from the right wing, but it is a concern because we are creating another disaster. I'll be voting no. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, briefly.
Second bite at the apple.
Then the final one, I had to respond to my good friend from Charles County. We were both born in the 1970s. I discovered that, in fact, this may shock you. I know that, while he may be antiquated, he is not yet a septuagenarian, but he is 9 months older than me. So I found that out, publicly available. But what I would suggest to you is that when both he and I and others in this room were born in the 1970s, what did the scientists and the great brains of the day tell us were going to happen in the energy field? They told us that we had reached peak oil. Peak oil, look it up. 1960s, 1970s, people were saying the exact same thing that the scientists are saying today. We're going to run out of the ability to energize our economy. We've reached peak oil. Whoever told you that in the 1970s is an absolute fool. We have more energy production capabilities in the United States today through natural gas and the ability to produce petroleum from new sources. Science is an amazing thing, and when it works, it works. We were also told that we will have global cooling. May shock you. Type that in. 1970s, Newsweek, Time Magazine, the entire planet is freezing. We're going to freeze. We have to do something. Global cooling. We were also told that we were all going to die from acid rain. There's nothing we could do about it. The acid rain was coming. The acid rain was here all the time. We solved that problem. We didn't solve it by shutting down every industry that existed. We solved it through the application of technology and science to mitigate the effects. And so that's all that I wanted to say, is that at the end of the day, if you're betting on wind, I hope that we're all still colleagues. I hope that we're all, more importantly, still friends 10, 15, 20 years ago from now, and we can have that conversation. And I'll be interested to do that with my friend as he approaches his 90th birthday at that time. I appreciate it.
Madam Speaker.
Chairman and sponsor of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And listening to my colleagues espouse, I guess the theory is science bad, right? Every time a scientist said something, you're going to quote the times that they're wrong. But again, I'm going to put my faith in my country, in the geniuses that we born out every day through our colleges and our educational systems. I'm going to put my faith in that, not past mistakes and, miscues. We talk about nuclear. Well, read the bill that we put in a few years ago, because we're not saying that nuclear is not an option, but it is never going to be the only option, because that's not how our country works. We never should put all of our eggs in one basket, because you will be left flat. And again, I'm shocked that my colleagues are so terrified of ingenuity. They're so terrified of actually investing into growing something. You want to go back again to something we've been using for 50 years? I get it. We all understand how nuclear works, and we understand it is a viable alternative, but it's not the only alternative. We're not going to, talking about nuclear is like going backwards. We know that works. We have to find additional solutions, because let's not pretend that nuclear is perfect. Let's not pretend that when those rods are spent, they are extraordinarily dangerous for thousands of years. And guess who doesn't want them transferred through their state? Anyone. That means we got to keep them right here in Maryland. And I know we can play games like, yeah, that's what the scientists say. I'm not worried about I got it. I got it. Science bad. I got it. Technology bad. But again, I'm going to put the faith in my community, in my state, to say we will continue to grow this. Just like I've been reading about how they're recycling the blades already. Because when you actually look at the details, because it's fiberglass, yes, there are things that we can do with that. And I'm sorry, hon, it's hard for me to hear. There are things that we can do with that. And we're going to find things to do with that. Because we've got to invest in this. What we can't now is say every time we want to take a step forward, go, oh my goodness, what if it doesn't land correctly? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. At the end of the day, we don't want to be talking about nuclear 20 years from now because we do not want to be relying on nuclear forever. It is not a perfect source. It could be extraordinarily dangerous. So we need to make sure we have alternatives so if that fails, and sometimes we could grow out of that into something safer, something consistent, something that's all around us all the time. Capturing wind is not villainy. It's not perfidy. It's trying to take advantage of the environment instead of destroying it. And yes, every time man steps on something, touches something, we leave a footprint. But as we've already talked about, we've investigated the environmental impacts. We make sure that where we picked, it's safe, and that the way we're drilling is safe to make sure we create as least harm as possible. So again, I don't want to, the fear-mongering is shocking. I know this country, and I know how great we are. I've watched us do amazing things in my time here. And I know that we're going to move this forward with alacrity, with zeal, and we will perfect this. So thank you guys very much. I do look forward to hearing the support of all my colleagues. Thank you.
Gentleman from Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to remind the body that over on the Eastern Shore, we actually already experimented with wind power. At Chesapeake College on Route 50 in Y Mills, they had a wind turbine up for many years. They thought that was going to be the holy grail that was going to pay for all the electric on the campus. They found it to be one of the biggest mistakes they'd made. It was way too costly. But the worst thing that happened, and I remember the day driving down Route 50, and I saw all the oil just running down the side of the turbine. So what we have to remember is every one of those turbines that's out in the ocean has hundreds of gallons of lubricant, oil, petroleum, whatever we want to call it, and that has to be replaced on a continual basis. I'm seeing on the Google machine perhaps every 24 to 36 months, hundreds of gallons by every turbine. So we were fortunate in Y Mills that that oil leaked down on the ground and was able to be mitigated. But I hate to think what's going to happen when that oil, and they do malfunction, and it drops and dribbles down into our sea. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll be voting no on this.
Madam Speaker.
Yes. Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just did some research, and I found out that U.S. Wind hasn't even got its federal permits. It's going to take 3 to 5, maybe 7 years for the permits. For that, I'll be voting no.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Calvert.
Madam Speaker, I do appreciate it. I just wanted to say, and normally this is something I would get up only once on, but the nuclear power plant, ladies and gentlemen, is in my district. And it is true that the spent rods of the nuclear power plant are stored in my district. You know what else is true? That we already have innovated in the United States since that nuclear power plant was built back in the 60s, because there's a company called TerraPower that uses the spent nuclear power plants to be able to power a nuclear power plant. And do you want to know why Calvert Cliffs hasn't modernized and built that plant? Because of the policies of this legislature, which chooses to subsidize wind and considers it renewable, but doesn't consider nuclear renewable. It's remarkable. It's remarkable that this legislature thinks it's okay to have those rods stored in this state and not to use them in the most technological advanced way possible. The nuclear power plant wants to do this. They want to modernize, and it would be on a fraction of the space that it's currently using, and it would be completely clean. The only byproduct is steam. There are no emissions whatsoever. There's no drilling in the ocean. There's no slurry. There's no pollution. There's no sound pollution. There's no visual pollution, because the facilities are smaller than they've ever been. But they can't do it because there are some who want to continue to subsidize the failed wind companies for whatever reason, rather than do what already works. Calvert Cliffs, ladies and gentlemen, produces 38 to 44% of the clean energy of the state of Maryland. clean energy. And yet we're not considering it renewable and clean. I find that to be stupid, and I don't get it. I really don't. And the citizens of Calvert County don't understand it either, because they actually support this plant. And I've seen bill after bill after bill over the years come through this legislature that tells us, you only have 12 years to live. That's what I hear from Montgomery County. I've heard it for, I don't know, over a decade. Guess what? Nuclear would have solved that problem 12 years ago, and you keep voting against it. So for all those reasons, I'm obviously voting against this bill, but more importantly, I'm calling out the hypocrisy, because it's nonsense. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
For Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to take this moment to sincerely thank the good chairman for his service to this country and his belief in this country and his desire to make us energy independent. But here's where the problem begins. With windmills, we have to have battery storage backup, which requires lithium. We get lithium from 3 places. One, Thacker Pass out in Nevada. They produce 60,000 tons of lithium annually. It consumes 1.7 billion gallons of water annually. The mine burns around 11,300 gallons of diesel fuel per day for a site operation and emits more than 150,000 tons of CO2 equivalent emissions per year. It's also reported to be on a Native American burial ground. And they do know that it's limited there. Second place, we get it from China. That asks the question about sustainability. The third place is Afghanistan, which is now controlled by the Taliban. Those are 3 bad options in my opinion. We are the Saudi Arabia of natural gas here, but we refuse to believe that. We can be energy independent in this country, but not through wind. For those very reasons, that's why I'll be voting against this bill, Madam Speaker.
On the bill, all in favor signify by saying, oh no, let me do it the right way. Is there any further debate?
Madam Speaker.
Oh, yes, the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you. I generally don't rise on the bills from other committee, but I don't think this is a stupid idea. This is a very innovative idea, actually. This is a very transformative bill that positions our state as a leader in a renewable energy by enhancing our offshore winds project. Number one, this has an oversight, and it also paves the way for increasing renewable energy credits and modifying project to achieve the goal of 8,500 megawatts of offshore wind and energy capacity by 2031. And lastly, this represents a very balanced approach to green energy development equipped with rate payer protections and minimal fiscal impact, showcasing our commitment to both environmental sustainability and economic prudence. On the whole, by supporting this bill, we affirm our commitment, our state commitment to combating climate change, fostering energy independence, and securing a sustainable future for all. Let's lead by example, and let's pass this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1296, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1390, Public Schools, Public School Construction, Funding, and Administration.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker? I just have a quick question.
Oh, okay. Young lady from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just have a quick question for the floor leader.
Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Hi, thank you.
What's up?
So I was looking at the fiscal note, and I did see that there was some good stuff in there, and I just wanted to ask, can these funds also be used for SROs and those types of expenses, I see secure and lockable doors, I see safe refuge in classrooms, and security and surveillance monitoring. But can we use it for real people that shoot back when bad things start?
No.
Okay, all right. I'll still be voting green, but I find that really disappointing. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded the vote? Does anyone care to change the vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1390, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker, vote change.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was in the red for 1244. Thank you.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Just want to make sure I'm recorded in House Bill 1244 as yay. My button didn't work.
Any other vote changes? Okay. That ends the work at the desk. Committee announcements, appropriations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The full committee will not meet today.
Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House Judiciary Committee will have a voting session starting at 3:45 today. Listen for subcommittee announcements.
Okay. Environment and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Environment and Transportation Committee will not meet today, but keep an ear out for subcommittee announcements.
Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee will meet for bill hearings at 2 p.m. Listen up for subcommittee announcements, and we will be voting at 5 p.m.
Economic Matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Economic Matters Committee will not be having hearings today. We will be having a chairman's meeting at 2:15 and a voting session at 3:15. Please listen up for subcommittee announcements.
Health and Government Operations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Health and Government Operations Committee will meet for bill hearings at 2:45, and we will announce voting after hearings. And please listen to subcommittee announcements. Thank you.
Any subcommittee announcements? Natural Resources.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Natural Resources will meet at 1:45 on Zoom. Thank you.
Alcoholic Beverages.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Economic Matters Alcohol Subcommittee will meet following floor session this afternoon in the committee room.
Motor Vehicles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Motor Vehicles will meet at 3 p.m. on Zoom.
Okay. Public Safety.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Public Safety Subcommittee will meet at 2 o'clock via Zoom.
Okay. Personnel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Please check your emails for more details, but we will be meeting tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning for a voting session. Thank you.
Unemployment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Unemployment Insurance Subcommittee will meet immediately after the voting session in the Economic Matters Committee room.
Early Childhood.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Early Childhood Subcommittee will meet immediately after bill hearings on Zoom.
Land Use and Ethics.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Land Use and Ethics Subcommittee will meet at 1:45 on Zoom. 1:45.
Government Ops and Health Facilities.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Government Operations and Health Facilities will meet today at 1:30, and we will also meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Revenues.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Revenues Subcommittee will meet virtually immediately following early childhood.
Real Property.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Housing and Real Property Subcommittee will meet today at 4 p.m. virtually. 4 p.m.
Okay. Environment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Environment Subcommittee will be meeting virtually today at 5 p.m.
Any other subcommittee announcements? Nope. Any delegation announcements? Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Education Subcommittee for Prince George's County will meet tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. via Zoom.
Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Anne Arundel County delegation will be meeting immediately after floor on Zoom for a brief voting session.
Okay. Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Washington County delegation will meet very briefly tomorrow morning at 9:45 a.m. outside the House floor. Thank you.
Any other Delegation announcements. Nope. Any caucus announcements? The Chair, Democratic Caucus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, the House Democratic Caucus will be meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I will be sending an email shortly. Thank you.
Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland will not be meeting tomorrow due to a conflict. We will see everyone next week.
The Republican Caucus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Republican Caucus will be meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Room 145.
Nope, anybody else up? Personal or guest announcement? Oh, God, everybody's getting up. Gentlelady from Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, please welcome two very important advocacy groups in the balcony in front of us. First is CARRY, the Community Allies of Rainbow Youth. CARRY works with schools to advocate for a safe and affirming learning environment for LGBTQ+ youth. And Free State Justice, statewide advocacy nonprofit that seeks to improve the lives of low-income lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer Marylanders. Thank you for being here today.
Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want everyone in the House to greet the Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City. They are Baltimore's elected student government, and their Legislative Affairs Committee planned today's trip in order to educate their peers about the legislative process. And I think we gave them a lot to learn about today. So thank you.
Gentlelady from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, we are counting down. We have 1 week before we have the Speaker Society dinner. So I want to encourage each and every one of you to join us next week, but you have to do so by seeing, Rhonda Caldwell Dove in room H4 downstairs with your checks, or by Zelle. So if you have any questions, please feel free to see me. And I really want each and every one of you to come and join us as we honor our former colleagues as well as current colleagues. So you have to come to find out what that means. Bye. Thank you very much.
Any other person?
Okay, I was asked how much it is. It's $70. I'm sorry, Madam. 70. It'll be a good time had by all. Thank you very much.
Gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a correction to make on Government Operations Subcommittee tomorrow. Looks like we will be meeting at 8 a.m.
Gentlelady from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to welcome my winter research assistant and is visiting over spring break, Elle. Thank you so much from District 30. Thanks so much for being here today.
Any other personal or guest announcements? I don't see anything. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Clerk will take the call. There being 135 members present, the House is still in session. Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stands adjourned until Thursday, March 14th at 10 a.m., legislative date March 3rd.